When Tiberius died in 37, the Roman people welcomed young Caligula like a savior. After years of fear, this youthful face rose over Rome like hope. The people believed he would restore peace and freedom. Caligula's innocence ended very young. He spent his childhood in his grandfather Tiberius's shadowed palace. The Capri villa wasn't just a pile of stone facing the sea. It was fear given a body. Each night, screams echoing between stone walls foretold sleepless mornings. Executioners paced the corridors. Torchlight shivered across the walls. Every footfall beat like a drum into a child's heart. For a child of play, there were no toys, only the rattle of chains. From distant rooms came groans, stifled breaths. Caligula hid inside the silence. One day, in the place of a servant he trusted, he found only a cloth stained dark. Tiberius's mercy was as cold as the marks on the floor. Fear blended into curiosity. Curiosity hardened into anger. One morning, when the sun struck the villa walls, there was no child left in Caligula's eyes. That morning, a quiet mist hung over the sea, and within that mist, something new was being born. Rome's future emperor, born of fear, pain, and silence. Years later, Rome could breathe again. In the streets, they shouted his name, Caligula! The Senate's stone columns now echoed not with fear, but with words of hope. Chains were loosened. Executioners fell silent. For the first time in years, people held each other. Bread was handed out in the squares, and with tears, Romans believed in a new beginning. As the wind passed over the Tiber, it touched the stone walls with hope. After years, senators finally raised their heads. In their eyes lingered a quiet faith in peace. Morning sun struck the palace's gilded walls. Years of darkness melted in that light. Rome was waking for the first time. At its center, Caligula drew a silent breath. His smile looked innocent, but in his eyes, Capri's shadows still glimmered. Rome now fed itself not only on war, but on spectacle. The arenas smothered the people's mute fury with blood. Every roar, every cheer, carved another notch into the empire's conscience. Entertainment had become the language of death. In the stands, there was no true ecstasy, only a dulled surrender. Rome was watching its own collapse. As the sand darkened, Rome's spirit stained with it. What once flowed with honor now adorned pleasure. When Caligula raised his golden cup, even silence bowed. Pain was art to him. Death, a game. As the feast lights burned, Roman virtue dimmed at that table. As the palace glittered, Rome's conscience starved. Poverty no longer stayed outside the walls. It lived inside hearts. The echo of triumph had faded. The only remaining sound was the silence of a people unashamed of its own history. And when the arena's gates shut, Rome lost not only blood, but its humanity. Rome's army no longer conquered, it performed. The legionaries weren't striking the sea, but the emperor's pride. Shells were tallied as trophies. Rome's victory had become a mirage. That day, shells on gilded litters symbolized a shame. Victory had turned into an empty word. Caligula saluted his own likeness. He had become a man praying not to a god, but to himself. As Drusilla donned the crown of Venus, Rome's borders were no longer drawn by kinship, but by obsession. Agrippina and Julia Livilla lived in constant fear. In the palace, Brotherhood gave way to depravity. The palace had become a pagan shrine. Jewels glittered. Wine spilled in excess. Caligula's nights never ended. Revels spoke the language of sin. Rome's heart filled not with gold, but with rot. The people had stopped applauding. On their faces was not hatred, but a quiet disgust. When Caligula looked in the mirror, he saw not a god, but a figure stripped of humanity. And that darkening shadow on the marble was the silent reflection of madness settling over Rome. A heavy hush lay over Rome's heart. Every whisper hid a nearing betrayal. The line between loyalty and fear thinned. Even the hands that held swords trembled. Shadows lengthened. The walls seemed to breathe. Rome prepared its own end. Applause died. The play was over. History would be written behind the stage. The emperor walked with his usual pride, yet this time the scene had been set for him. Steel flashed from the shadows. When Caligula turned, Rome held its breath. Blades fell one by one. The emperor's cry echoed off the stone. Power fell to the ground. Only a man remained. Rome's god proved mortal after all. The marble was cold, but the spill was warm. The price of madness flowed into Rome's heart. The gold beneath the crown dimmed. An empire stood headless. The stone witnessed a mute justice. In the end, madness yielded to silence. Rome is free, someone whispered. Yet even that freedom was soaked in red. Echoes trailed behind. Rome had toppled its own idol, yet found no peace. The echo of applause had long since died. After madness, Rome sank into silence. Time had bent even marble. The stones themselves could not forget the emperor's frenzy. The echo of an age had gone quiet. Rome felt the weight of being rid of a madman. The roads still carried the trace of fresh fear. Every corner remembered with a whisper. The sky hung heavy. The wind was cool. Rome was learning how to breathe again. A face of stone still stared. The frenzy had ended, but its marks continued to live in Rome's heart.